For 3,000 years, the species of the Galactic Coalition told stories about humans. Mothers whispered these tales to their children at night. Soldiers shared them around fires before battle. Scholars wrote thick books trying to separate fact from fiction. But everyone agreed on one thing: humans were terrifying. The stories said humans came from a death world called Earth. On this planet, the gravity was so strong it crushed weaker beings. The air was filled with poison. Water fell from the sky and flooded entire cities. Fire swept across forests and burned everything in its path. And yet, somehow, humans survived. They did not just survive. They became the most dangerous predators on their world. The ancient texts described humans in detail. They could run for hours without stopping. They healed from wounds that would kill other species. They ate plants and animals and sometimes things that were poison to everyone else. They felt pain but ignored it. They felt fear but fought anyway. And worst of all, they were creative. When they wanted to kill something, they invented new ways to do it. But the most frightening thing about humans was their history. They did not just fight other species. They fought each other. For thousands of years, humans waged wars against their own kind. They built weapons that could destroy cities. They created bombs that could poison the land for generations. They invented machines that could think and kill without mercy. The Coalition had made contact with Earth once long ago. A trade agreement was signed. A military treaty was promised. But then Earth went silent. No more signals. No more ships. The stars where Earth existed became empty and cold. Most species believed the humans had finally destroyed themselves. It was the natural end for such a violent race. Some felt relief. Others felt sadness. A few felt fear, wondering if any humans had escaped before the end. Ambassador Oran was one of those who wondered. He was a tall being with silver skin and large dark eyes. He had spent his entire life studying human legends. He had read every text, watched every recording, and interviewed every species that claimed to have met a human. He believed that somewhere out there, humans still existed. But right now, Oran had bigger problems. The Dominion was attacking his. Their ships filled the sky like a swarm of angry insects. Their weapons burned cities to ash. Their soldiers marched through the streets, killing anyone who resisted. They were conquerors. They had ruled half the galaxy for 1,000 years. They were strong, disciplined, and completely without mercy. When they wanted a planet, they took it. When a species refused to submit, they destroyed it. The Coalition had tried to fight them many times and lost every single battle. Oran stood in the command center of the last defense station. Around him, officers shouted orders and screens showed the devastation outside. The Coalition fleet was in full retreat. Their ships were too few, too weak, and too slow. "We have to surrender," said General, a large reptilian officer. "If we keep fighting, they will kill everyone." "If we surrender, they will enslave everyone," Oran replied. "Is that better? At least we would be alive." Oran turned away from the general and walked to a small console in the corner. This console was connected to a very old transmitter, one that had not been used in 3,000 years. It was designed to send a signal to one place and one place only. "Earth, what are you doing?" General demanded. "Something desperate," Oran said. He activated the transmitter and spoke into it. "This is Ambassador Oran of the people. I invoke the ancient treaty between our worlds. We need help, please. If anyone is listening, we need help." The signal flew into space at the speed of light. It traveled past burning ships and dying soldiers. It moved through empty sectors where no one had gone for centuries. And then, against all odds, it found something. The colony ship Wanderer's Hope had been traveling through deep space for 200 years. It was one of 12 ships that had escaped Earth before a massive solar event made the planet uninhabitable. 50,000 humans lived on these ships, searching for a new home. Captain Jake was asleep when the signal arrived. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had been born on the ship, as had his parents. No living human had ever seen Earth. His communication officer, a young woman named Vance, woke him with urgent news. Had served in the ship's security forces before being promoted. She was smart, tough, and not easily impressed. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said. Jake listened to the message. His face showed no emotion, but his hands tightened into fists. "They're asking for help," he said quietly. "The treaty is 3,000 years old," replied. "We don't owe them anything." "Maybe not, but they're being slaughtered, and we have the power to do something about it." Jake called a meeting of all 12 ship captains. The discussion lasted for hours. Some wanted to help, others wanted to stay hidden. A few suggested they find a planet and forget the galaxy existed. In the end, Jake made the decision alone. It was his right as the senior captain. "We came out here looking for a home," he said. "But what kind of home can we build if we let innocent people die when we could have saved them? The humans of Earth made mistakes. We don't have to repeat them. We can be better. We can be the humans the galaxy needs us to be." The fleet changed course. 47 ships carrying 50,000 humans turned toward the. On the defense station, Iran had given up hope. The transmitter had been silent for days. The fleet was closing in. Soon, everything would be over. Then a light appeared on the console, a response to his signal. Iran read the message with shaking hands. It contained only 5 words, but those words changed everything. "We are coming, hold on." The legends were real. The humans had heard his call, and they were coming to battle. Iran looked up at the burning sky, and for the first time in weeks he smiled. The sky above them was filled with fire. Warships moved through the burning atmosphere like sharks through dark water. On the ground, cities collapsed under endless bombardment. In space, the coalition fleet was dying. General watched the battle from the defense station. His face was calm, but his heart was heavy. He had fought many wars in his long life. He knew when a battle was lost. This battle had been lost before it even started. "Order all remaining ships to retreat," he said quietly. "Save who we can." "General," an officer called out, "there is something strange happening at the edge of the system." Turned to look at the scanner display. Bright points of light were appearing from nowhere. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel, but these were not coalition ships. These were not ships either. These ships were different. They were smaller than warships but built with hard angles and thick armor. Their hulls were painted gray and black. Strange symbols were marked on their sides, and there were 47 of them, moving in perfect formation toward the planet. Ambassador Oran pushed through the crowd of officers to see the display. His silver skin had turned pale. His dark eyes were wide with shock and wonder. "It cannot be," he whispered. "What are those ships?" General demanded. Oran's voice was barely more than a breath. "Humans." The word spread through the defense station like fire. Officers stopped what they were doing. Soldiers looked up from their weapons. Everyone stared at the display, watching the strange ships approach. On the bridge of the Wanderer's Hope, Captain Jake studied the battle ahead. The fleet was massive. Over 2,000 warships filled the space around the planet. They were big, heavily armed, and organized for maximum destruction. Jake had 47 ships. Most of them were colony vessels, designed for long travel, not combat. Only 12 had real weapons. The odds were impossible. Vance stood beside him, her arms crossed over her chest. She had spent the entire journey planning for this moment. Her tactical displays showed every enemy ship, every weapon system, every possible weakness. "They outnumber us 50 to 1, she said, "maybe more." "I can count," Jake replied. "Just making sure you understand what we're flying into." Jake smiled slightly. "I understand. The question is, do they understand what they're about to face?" He opened a communication channel to the fleet. A moment later, a face appeared on the screen. It was Warlord, commander of the Dominion forces. He was a large creature with thick gray skin and small red eyes. Scars covered his face from countless battles. Unknown vessels said, "You have entered space. Identify yourselves or be destroyed." Jake leaned forward. "My name is Jake. I'm the captain of the human colony fleet. You are attacking a world under our protection. Leave now, or we will make you leave." There was a long silence, then laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Humans," he said, "the humans are extinct. Everyone knows this." "Clearly not everyone. You are 40 ships against 2,000. You cannot win." Jake shrugged. "Then you have nothing to worry about, but I am giving you one chance to walk away. Take it." Stopped laughing. His red eyes narrowed. "No species has ever threatened the Dominion and survived. You will learn why." The channel closed. A moment later, the fleet began to move. Hundreds of warships turned toward the human fleet, their weapons charging. Jake turned to, "Show them what humans can do." Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. The battle began with silence. Human ships scattered in all directions, breaking their formation into small groups. The commanders were confused. Every species they had ever fought used the same tactics. Ships formed lines. They exchanged fire. The side with more ships won. But humans did not fight in lines. Small human fighters launched from the colony ships. They were fast, agile, and almost impossible to hit. They flew directly at the warships, firing missiles at close range before spinning away. Gunners could not track them. Their weapons were designed for large targets, not insects. Coordinated the attack from her console. She sent orders to every squadron, every ship, every pilot. She found gaps in the formation and exploited them. She identified weak points and struck them hard. The lost 300 ships in the first hour. Warlord could not understand what was happening. His fleet was the largest in the Dominion. He had conquered 100 worlds, and now these small, strange ships were tearing his forces apart. "All ships full assault," he roared. "Destroy them all." The fleet surged forward. Thousands of weapons fired at once. The space around the human ships filled with energy beams and explosions. Jake watched the incoming fire on his display. His ship shook as shields absorbed the first impacts. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Sam," he called to his chief engineer, "is the equalizer ready?" Sam was in the engineering bay, surrounded by machines and wires. He was a small man with quick hands and an even quicker mind. He had built the equalizer from old Earth designs, modified for their current situation. "Ready when you are, Captain," Sam replied. "Do it." Sam pressed a button. A pulse of energy shot out from the Wanderer's hope. It was invisible to the eye but devastating to machines. The electromagnetic pulse hit the flagship first, then spread to the surrounding ships. Lights went out, engines died, weapons stopped firing. 300 warships went dark and silent, drifting helplessly in space. On his crippled flagship, Warlord stared at his dead control panels. Emergency lights gave the bridge a red glow. His crew stumbled around in confusion. For the first time in his life, felt something he did not recognize. It was fear. On the defense station, Oran watched the battle with tears in his eyes. The legends had not prepared him for this. The stories had described humans as monsters, as savage beasts who killed without thought. But this was not savage, this was precise, this was strategic, this was beautiful. General stood beside him, his reptilian face showing rare emotion. "They are winning," he said. "How is this possible?" Oran shook his head. "I do not know, but I believe we are seeing why the galaxy used to fear them." The fleet was in chaos. Ships crashed into each other. Commanders screamed orders that no one followed. The perfect discipline that had conquered half the galaxy crumbled in minutes. And through it all, the human ships kept fighting, 47 against 2,000. Impossible odds, certain death. But humans did not believe in certain death. They believed in winning. Jake watched the fleet burn and knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion was vast. They would send more ships, more soldiers, more warlords. But today, the humans had shown the galaxy something important. They had shown that the legends were real, that Earth's children still lived, and that they had not forgotten how to fight. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in 1,000 years, the Dominion had lost. And the galaxy would never be the same. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every planet, every station, every ship heard the same incredible story. The humans had returned. They had fought the Dominion and won. The invincible empire had been defeated by 47 ships from a dead world. Some species did not believe it at first. They had been told for centuries that humans were extinct. They had been told that they could not be beaten. Both of these facts had been accepted as absolute truth. But the recordings were real. Millions watched the battle footage. They saw the human ships dance through enemy fire. They saw the fleet fall into chaos. They saw Warlord's flagship go dark and silent. Hope began to grow in places where hope had died long ago. On the humans were treated as heroes. Crowds gathered wherever they walked. Children reached out to touch them, as if to prove they were real. Old soldiers wept openly at the sight of their saviors. But Jake did not feel like a hero. He felt tired and worried. He sat alone in his quarters on the Wanderer's Hope, staring at maps of the galaxy. The Dominion controlled thousands of systems. They had millions of ships and billions of soldiers. The battle they had won was just a small skirmish in a much larger war. Vance found him there, still staring at the maps. "You should be celebrating with the others," she said. "I should be planning our next move," Jake replied. We'll be back, stronger this time, angrier. We surprised them once. We will not surprise them again." Sat down across from him. "Then we find new ways to surprise them." "How? We have 40 ships left. They have millions." "We have something they do not have," said. "We have a galaxy full of people who want to fight back. They just needed someone to show them it was possible. We showed them." Jake looked at her for a long moment. She was right, of course. She usually was. But the weight of responsibility still pressed down on his shoulders. 50,000 humans depended on him. Now millions of other beings did too. The Coalition High Council summoned Jake to address them. The council chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from 100 different species. They had traveled from across the galaxy to see the human captain with their own eyes. Jake stood before them, feeling very small in such a large room. "Thank you for coming," he began. "I know many of you traveled far to be here. I wish I had better news to give you." The chamber fell silent. They will not stop because of one defeat. They have ruled the galaxy through fear for 1,000 years. They will not let that end without a fight. The war we started is going to be long and painful. Many of us will not live to see the end of it. Whispers spread through the chamber. Some delegates looked afraid, others looked angry. "But I want you to understand something," Jake continued. "Humans do not fight because we want to. We fight because we have to. We fight because evil does not stop on its own. Someone has to stand up. Someone has to say no. And right now, that someone is us." He paused, looking around the room. "I am not asking you to follow us. I am not asking you to believe in us. I am asking you to believe in yourselves. For too long you have accepted that they cannot be beaten, but they can. We proved it, and if we can do it, so can you." The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates cheered, others argued, a few walked out, but many stayed, and many began to think about things they had never allowed themselves to think before. After the speech, a young approached Jake. Her name was, and she wore the uniform of a junior soldier. She was small even by standards, with bright eyes and nervous hands. "Captain," she said, "I want to join your forces." Jake looked at her with surprise. "Our forces, we are not an army." "You are now," replied. "And I want to learn. I want to fight the way you fight. I want to make them afraid the way they made us afraid." Jake studied her face. He saw determination there, and something else, something he recognized from the mirror. "Training will be hard," he warned. "Humans push themselves in ways other species find difficult." "Good," said. "I am tired of being soft." She became the first alien to train under human command. She would not be the last. Meanwhile, Sam was busy in the engineering bay. Coalition engineers had come to study human technology, and Sam was teaching them everything he knew. They were amazed by his methods. Humans did not just build machines. They modified them, improved them, made them do things they were never designed to do. "This is incredible," one coalition engineer said, examining a modified shield generator. "You increased its efficiency by 40%. How?" Sam shrugged. "I looked at it and thought about what it could do instead of what it was supposed to do. Then I made changes." But that is not how engineering works. It is how human engineering works. The coalition ships began to improve. Old weapons became new weapons. Slow ships became fast ships. Weak shields became strong shields. The transformation was slow, but it was happening. Then the returned. 5,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. This time, Warlord was not leading them. He had been executed for his failure. The new commander was Warlord, a veteran of 100 campaigns. Was not going to make the same mistakes as. The human fleet was outnumbered 100 to 1. Coalition ships joined them, but they were still hopelessly. The enemy formation was tight and disciplined, with no gaps to exploit. Stared at her tactical display for hours, looking for a weakness. Finally, she found one. "They are too organized," she told Jake. "They expect us to attack their formation. They have prepared for every possible approach." "So what do we do?" Smiled her dangerous smile. "We do not attack their formation, we attack their minds." The plan was called the Hornet's Nest. Human ships would split into tiny groups, no more than 3 vessels each. They would strike from every direction at once, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. They would not try to destroy the enemy fleet. They would try to drive it insane. The battle began at midnight local time. Human ships scattered like seeds in the wind. They appeared from behind asteroids, from the shadows of moons, from places the sensors could not reach. They attacked and vanished, over and over from every direction. The fleet began to lose discipline. Ships fired at shadows. Commanders screamed at each other over communication channels. The perfect formation started to break apart. But the cost was terrible. 7 human ships were destroyed. Hundreds of lives were lost. Watched their names scroll across her screen and felt each death like a wound. Jake knew they could not win through tactics alone. They needed something more, something dramatic, something that would break the enemy's spirit completely. He gathered a team of volunteers, 20 humans in combat armor, carrying weapons that could punch through hull plating. Their target was the enemy flagship. "This is suicide," said when she heard the plan. "Probably," Jake agreed. "But if we kill their commander, the fleet will fall apart. It is our only chance." Wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She grabbed his arm before he left the bridge. "Come back alive," she said. "I will do my best." The assault shuttle flew through the chaos of battle, dodging fire from both sides. It crashed into the flagship's hull, and Jake led his team through the breach. The fighting inside was brutal. Soldiers were big and strong, but humans were fast and relentless. Jake's team pushed forward, leaving bodies behind them. They found Warlord on the command bridge. He was enormous, even for his armor was covered in medals from his many victories. "So," said, "the human legends come to face me. I am honored." Jake raised his weapon. Surrender your fleet and you will live. Laughed the do not surrender. Then you will die. The fight lasted only seconds, was strong, but Jake was faster. A blade found the gap in the warlord's armor, and the commander of 5,000 ships fell to the ground. Jake broadcast a message to the entire fleet. Your leader is dead. Leave now or join him. The fled 5,000 ships turned and ran from 40. The battle was over. But Jake knew the war was just beginning. The Dominion would send more ships, more soldiers, more warlords, and eventually they would send their emperor. He looked out at the stars and wondered if humanity was ready for what was coming. The High Emperor had ruled the Dominion for 600 years. He had conquered more worlds than any being in history. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed civilizations, and built an empire that covered half the galaxy. No one had ever truly challenged him. Until now. He sat on his throne made of black metal, watching recordings of the human battles. His advisors stood in silence, too afraid to speak. The Emperor had already executed 3 commanders for their failures. Everyone expected more deaths to follow. These humans, the Emperor said slowly, they are interesting. They fight like no species I have ever seen. They do not fear death. They do not accept defeat. They adapt faster than we can respond. They are dangerous, my lord, one advisor said carefully. Perhaps we should negotiate. The Emperor turned his ancient eyes toward the advisor. Negotiate. The do not negotiate. We conquer. We rule. We destroy those who oppose us. He rose from his throne. He was old, but his body was still strong. Centuries of combat had made him into a weapon. I will deal with these humans myself. Mobilize the entire empire, every ship, every soldier, every weapon. I want 20,000 warships at the system within 30 days. The advisors bowed and hurried to obey. The Emperor watched them go with cold satisfaction. He had waited 600 years for a worthy enemy. Perhaps he had finally found one. Meanwhile, on the human fleet was struggling. Their victories had cost them dearly. They had lost 11 ships in the 2 battles. Their supplies were running low. Their people were tired. Jake stood in a planning room with Vance and Sam. Maps covered every wall. Reports piled up on every table. None of the news was good. We have enough food for 3 months, Sam reported. Fuel for 6, ammunition for maybe 2 major battles. The coalition has promised support, added, but their ships are slow and their crews are untrained. It will take months to get them ready for real combat. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. Our intelligence says they are mobilizing everything, 20,000 ships, maybe more. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. They had defeated 2,000 ships through surprise and skill, but 20,000, that was something else entirely. We need to attack first, said. Hit them before they can organize. Jake shook his head. If we attack now, we leave the civilian populations unprotected. They will simply go around us and destroy everything we are fighting to save. Then what do? We defend. We make them come to us. We make them pay for every inch of space they take. His face showed her disagreement, but she did not argue. She trusted Jake, even when she thought he was wrong. The weeks that followed were tense and difficult. Human engineers worked day and night to repair damaged ships and build new weapons. Coalition forces trained under human instructors, learning tactics that seemed crazy but worked. The young soldier became one of the best students, pushing herself harder than anyone else. Ambassador Iran spent his days writing messages to neutral systems, begging them to join the fight. Some agreed. Most refused. They were too afraid too certain of defeat. Then came the betrayal. A coalition communication officer named had been secretly working for He had been passing information to the enemy for months, hoping to earn favor with the winning side. One night, he transmitted the location of the human fleet to the Dominion. They arrived 3 days early, catching everyone by surprise. The first warning was a flash of light at the edge of the system, then another, and another. Within minutes, the sky was filled with enemy ships, not 20,000, more. The Emperor had brought his entire armada. Jake was asleep when the alarms went off. He ran to the bridge in his underclothes, his heart pounding in his chest. "Report," he shouted. His face was pale. "They found us, all of them, the whole Dominion fleet." The first missiles hit before the human ships could raise shields. 20 vessels exploded in the opening seconds. Thousands of lives gone in an instant. "Get us moving," Jake ordered. "All ships evasive pattern." But they had learned from their previous defeats. They had spread their fleet across the entire system, blocking every escape route. There was nowhere to run. The battle became a nightmare. Human ships fought with desperate courage, but they were overwhelmed from every direction. Coalition allies tried to help but were destroyed almost immediately. The sky burned with explosions. Was coordinating the defense when a torpedo hit the bridge. The explosion threw her across the room. Metal fragments cut through her armor and into her body. She collapsed in a pool of her own blood. "Medic," Jake screamed. "Someone help her." Sam arrived from the engineering bay just as another explosion rocked the ship. The blast tore through his station, sending debris flying everywhere. A piece of twisted metal sliced through his left arm just below the elbow. Sam looked down at the damage. His arm was gone. Blood was pumping from the wound. In that moment he had a choice. He could lie down and die, or he could keep fighting. He grabbed a piece of wire, tied it around his arm to stop the bleeding, and went back to work with one hand. Across the fleet, similar stories played out. Humans who should have died kept fighting. Humans who were wounded refused to stop. They were outnumbered. But they would not give up. Jake ordered a full retreat. It was the hardest decision of his life. He was abandoning the people who had trusted him. But if the fleet was destroyed, there would be no one left to fight. The surviving ships gathered together and prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. But the had surrounded them. There was no clear path out. "We are trapped," the navigation officer reported. "Every route is blocked." Jake stared at the display. 27 ships remained from his original 47, less than half, and even those were damaged and dying. Captain's voice came over the communication system. She was on one of the coalition ships. "I have an idea." "I am listening." "They are focused on your ships. They want to destroy the humans. They are ignoring us." Jake understood immediately. "No, I will not let you sacrifice yourself." "You do not have a choice," replied. "You taught me that humans fight because someone has to. Well, now someone has to be you, and someone has to give you time to escape. That is me." Before Jake could respond, ship broke formation. It flew directly at the blockade, weapons firing. Other coalition ships followed her. The turn to engage these new threats. For a brief moment, a gap opened in their formation. "Go now," shouted over the communication system. "Do not waste this." Jake made the only choice he could. He ordered the human fleet through the gap. As his ship jumped to safety, he watched his vessel disappear in a ball of fire. They had escaped, but the cost was terrible. The surviving ships gathered at a hidden location far from coalition space. Everyone was wounded. Everyone was grieving. The future seemed dark and hopeless. But then something unexpected happened. A message arrived from across the galaxy. Then another, and another. Millions of beings had watched the battle. They had seen humans fighting impossible odds. They had seen coalition ships sacrificing themselves for strangers. They had seen courage they had never believed possible. And they had decided they wanted to be part of it. Though a warrior race that had served them for centuries rebelled. They killed their Dominion overseers and declared their allegiance to the human cause. Other species followed. System after system rose up against the Empire. Jake watched the reports come in with tears in his eyes. They had lost the battle. They had lost friends. They had lost almost everything. But they had won something more important. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to fight. And now, the galaxy was ready to fight back. The war was not over. The darkest hour had passed, and somewhere out there the Emperor was waiting. It was time to bring the fight to him. 3 months had passed since the disastrous ambush. 3 months of healing, rebuilding, and preparing for the final confrontation. The human fleet had grown from 27 ships to over 30,000, as species from across the galaxy to their cause. They had brought 5,000 warships, crewed by warriors who had learned to hate their former masters. They had rebuilt their defense forces with human technology and human training. Dozens of other species had contributed whatever they could spare. Even races that had been enemies for centuries now fought side by side. Jake stood on the bridge of the Wanderer's Hope, watching the fleet assemble around him. He looked older than he had 3 months ago. Gray had spread through his hair. Lines had deepened around his eyes. The weight of command had left its mark. But he was still standing. They all were. Vance was beside him, her body covered in scars from her injuries. She had spent weeks recovering, learning to move again, learning to fight again. The doctors had told her she might never walk. She had proven them wrong within a month. Sam was in the engineering bay, testing the modifications on his mechanical arm. He had built it himself from salvaged parts and stolen technology. It was stronger than his original arm had been. He had made sure of that. Ambassador Aran was coordinating communication between the Allied fleets. He had changed in these months too. The scholar who had studied human legends was gone. In his place was a diplomat who had seen those legends come to life. They were all ready. They had to be. There would be no second chances. The target was Prime, the heart of the Dominion. The Emperor was there, surrounded by 50,000 warships and the strongest defenses in the galaxy. No enemy had ever reached Prime. No enemy had ever tried. Until now. Jake addressed the fleet before they departed. His voice was broadcast to every ship, every soldier, every being who had chosen to fight. For 3,000 years the galaxy believed we were legends, he said. Stories to frighten children, tales of monsters from a death world who destroyed themselves through violence. They thought we were extinct. They thought we were forgotten. He paused, looking at the faces around him. They were wrong. We are not legends. We are not monsters. We are humans. We bleed, we hurt, we grieve. We have lost friends and family in this war. We have suffered defeats that should have destroyed us. His voice grew stronger. But we are still here. We are still fighting, because that is what humans do. We do not give up. We do not accept defeat. We do not let evil win just because winning is hard. He raised his hand toward the stars. Today we finish what we started. Today we show the galaxy that tyranny always falls. Today we prove that the legends were true. We arrive to battle, and we will not stop until the battle is won. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving a trail of light behind them. The final battle began above Prime. 50,000 Dominion warships formed a wall around the planet, their weapons ready, their crews prepared to die for their emperor. Behind them, massive defense platforms bristled with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. The Allied forces dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately engaged. 30,000 ships against 50,000. The odds were bad but not impossible. Not anymore. Coordinated the attack from her station. She had spent months planning this battle, studying every aspect of tactics, every weakness in their defenses. She knew exactly where to strike. All fighter squadrons target the command stations, she ordered. Take out their coordination and they will fall apart. Human pilots flew into the storm of enemy fire, dodging and weaving through explosions. They were the best pilots in the galaxy, trained in techniques that other species could barely understand. One by one, command stations began to explode. The Dominion fleet started to lose organization. Ships that had been coordinating perfectly began to fire at each other. Formations broke apart. The wall around Prime developed cracks. But the Emperor had prepared for this. He had learned from his commander's failures. He broadcast a single message to his fleet: hold the line at all costs. Any ship that retreated would be destroyed by the defense platforms behind them. The stopped retreating. They fought with the desperation of beings who had no other choice. The casualties on both sides became horrific. Ships exploded everywhere. Escape pods filled the space between the fleets. Sam worked frantically in the engineering bay, keeping the Wanderer's hope alive through damage that should have destroyed it. His mechanical arm moved faster than any organic limb could, making repairs in seconds that should have taken hours. Hull breach on Deck 7, an engineer reported. Seal it, Sam ordered. Weapons array is offline. Reroute power from the secondary systems. Engine 3 is on fire. Put it out. He made each decision instantly, without hesitation. There was no time to think. There was only time to act. The battle raged for hours. Both sides took terrible losses. The Allied fleet was reduced to 20,000 ships. The fleet was reduced to 30,000. But slowly, painfully, the Allies were winning. Saw an opening. Captain, the planetary shields are weakening. If Sam's team can get to the surface, they can bring them down completely. Jake made the decision immediately. Sam, take a landing party. Get those shields down. On my way, Sam replied. The assault shuttle flew through the chaos of battle, carrying Sam and 50 volunteers. They crashed through the weakened shield and landed on the surface of Prime. The ground was black and lifeless, covered with factories and military installations. This world had been stripped of everything natural long ago. Sam led his team toward the shield generator. Soldiers tried to stop them, but human determination pushed through every obstacle. They fought through corridors filled with enemies, climbed walls meant to be impassable, and crossed open ground under constant fire. Sam lost 12 of his people before they reached the generator. He mourned each one for exactly 1 second before moving on. There would be time for grief later. Now, there was only the mission. The generator was enormous, powered by energy sources that Sam could barely comprehend. But all machines had weaknesses, and Sam was very good at finding weaknesses. Cover me, he told his team. Then he went to work. His mechanical fingers moved through the generator's systems, cutting wires, rerouting power, causing feedback loops that the engineers had never anticipated. Within minutes, the generator began to overload. Everyone out, Sam shouted. Now. They ran as the generator exploded behind them. The planetary shields flickered and died. Prime was defenseless. In orbit, the Allied fleet saw their opportunity. Ships that had been held back now surged forward, bombarding military installations across the planet. The defensive platforms, designed to protect against external threats, could not turn their weapons inward fast enough. Jake watched the devastation from the bridge. He felt no joy. These were not soldiers dying below. They were factories, bases, weapons. The military machine was being dismantled piece by piece. But the Emperor was still alive, and as long as he lived, the war would continue. Take us to the Emperor's throne ship, Jake ordered. The Wanderer's hope flew through the battle, dodging fire from both sides. The Emperor's ship was at the center of the remaining fleet, a massive vessel covered in gold and black. It was the largest ship Jake had ever seen. How do we get inside? Asked. We ask politely, Jake replied. He opened a communication channel. Emperor of the This is Captain Jake of the human fleet. I challenge you to single combat. If I win, your empire surrenders. If you win, my fleet retreats. There was a long silence. Then the Emperor's voice responded, ancient and cold. You challenge me. A creature from a dead world challenges the ruler of half the galaxy. I do. Another silence. Then I accept. Come to my ship, come and die. Jake turned to, if I do not come back, you are in command. You are coming back, said firmly. I hope so. Jake took a small shuttle to the Emperor's ship. He was met by guards who escorted him to the throne room. It was vast and dark, filled with trophies from 600 years of conquest. Skulls of defeated enemies lined the walls. Weapons from destroyed civilizations hung from the ceiling. The Emperor sat on his throne, waiting. He was huge, even larger than the warlords Jake had fought before. His body was covered in armor that looked like it had grown from his skin. His eyes glowed with a red light that spoke of ancient power. So, the Emperor said, you are the human, the legend that has caused me so much trouble. I am just a man, Jake replied, a man who wants this war to end. Then you should have stayed dead. Your kind was better as a memory. Maybe, but memories do not fight back. I do. The Emperor rose from his throne. He was 3 times Jake's size, with arms that could crush steel. He moved with a speed that seemed impossible for something so large. Tell me, human, the Emperor said, why do you fight? You have nothing to gain, your world is dead, your people are scattered. Why not simply survive? Jake met the Emperor's glowing eyes. Because someone has to, because you made the galaxy afraid, because evil does not stop itself. Someone has to stand up and say no. Today, that someone is me. The Emperor laughed. Noble words, let us see if you can back them up. The fight was brutal. The Emperor was stronger, faster, and more experienced. He had killed thousands of enemies in personal combat. Jake was just one more. But Jake was human, and humans did not fight fair. He ducked under the Emperor's first strike and drove a blade into the gap between armor plates. The Emperor roared and swung again. Jake rolled aside and attacked from a different angle. He could not match the Emperor's strength, so he did not try. He fought like a human, using speed and cunning and sheer stubborn refusal to die. The fight lasted for an eternity. Both combatants were wounded, bleeding, exhausted, but only one of them was willing to keep going no matter what. Jake found his opening, a moment when the Emperor overextended, a gap in the ancient armor, a chance. He took it. His blade sank into the Emperor's heart. The ruler of half the galaxy looked down at the weapon in his chest with something like surprise. Impossible, the Emperor whispered. No, Jake replied, just human. The Emperor fell. The war was over. The surrender came quickly after that. Commanders, leaderless and defeated, accepted the Allied terms. Billions of enslaved beings were freed. Thousands of occupied worlds were liberated. The dominion that had terrorized the galaxy for 1,000 years collapsed in a single day. Jake was offered any reward he wanted. He could have had wealth, power, entire planets to rule. He chose something different. He chose a small, quiet world at the edge of coalition space. A place with green forests and blue oceans and skis that had never seen war. A place where his people could finally rest. Stayed behind to help rebuild the coalition military. She wanted to make sure no empire could ever threaten the galaxy again. Sam opened an engineering academy, teaching alien students the human way of innovation. Aran wrote the first true history of humanity, ensuring the legends would be remembered correctly. And on his quiet world, Jake watched the sun set over peaceful hills. He thought about everyone they had lost, everyone they had saved, everything they had accomplished. The galaxy had believed humans were myths, monsters from a death world, stories to frighten children. They had been wrong. Humans were not monsters, they were not legends, they were something far more dangerous. They were people who refused to let evil win, people who fought when fighting seemed impossible, people who stood up when everyone else sat down. And when the galaxy needed them most, they arrived to battle. The story would be told for thousands of years. Parents would share it with their children. Soldiers would remember it before going into combat. Scholars would study it and wonder how it was possible. But the answer was,